German Shepherd was trapped between two moving containers. What Baby did next was heroic. Escape, as familiar to locals as the chirping of sparrows at dawn. 5-year-old Kai pressed his small, smudged face against the cold chain-link fence, his dark, almond-shaped eyes tracking the towering cranes as they hoisted massive steel containers with mechanical precision, shifting them like a child's building blocks across the sprawling concrete lot. His small hands, clad in slightly too large blue mittens, gripped the metal links tightly, his breath fogging faintly in the crisp morning air. "Stay close, buddy," Mason called out, his voice carrying a mix of warmth and caution as he adjusted his scratched, yellow hard hat and strode toward the forklift bay, his work boots crunching against the gravel-strewn ground. At 32, Mason's hands were calloused and weathered from years of manual labor, scars crisscrossing his knuckles like a map of his struggles. Yet his hazel eyes held a gentle, unwavering warmth reserved solely for his son, Kai, who had become his anchor since their world shifted 3 months ago. They had relocated to Riverside after the divorce, fleeing the chaos of their old life for the promise of a quieter existence in this small, unassuming town. Kai didn't respond with words. He hadn't spoken since his mother's abrupt departure 8 months prior, but he offered a small, deliberate nod, his gaze never leaving the hypnotic dance of the yard's machinery. Mason had grown attuned to Kai's silent language, reading the boy's subtle cues like a book he'd memorized. The slight tilt of Kai's head signaled curiosity, the rapid drumming of his fingers against his leg, a habit when lost in thought, meant he was piecing something together in his sharp, quiet mind. The Riverside shipping yard wasn't a sprawling metropolis of industry, but it provided steady work for Mason, who operated a weathered yellow forklift to shuttle smaller containers across the lot. The larger cargo, steel behemoths stacked 3 stories high, was handled by the yard's automated cranes, their hydraulic arms humming with a precision that fascinated Kai. The crew, a tight-knit group of workers who'd spent years in the yard's dusty embrace, had taken a liking to the quiet boy who appeared every day after school, perched on a splintered wooden bench near the fence, his small backpack stuffed with crayons and a well-worn sketchbook. "Morning, Mason," Tommy bellowed, his gravelly voice cutting through the yard's ambient noise. A heavy-set man in his mid-50s with a salt-and-pepper beard, Tommy oversaw crane operations with a commanding presence. "Little man's here early today." Mason glanced at his battered wristwatch, 7:30 a.m., and nodded. Kai had been restless since before dawn, tugging insistently at Mason's sleeve until they left their cramped apartment. "Yeah, up before the sun," Mason replied, scratching the back of his neck. "Something's got him wired today." Kai edged closer to the fence, his sneakers scuffing the dirt as his mittened hands tightened around the metal links. His eyes locked onto container 47B, a faded blue unit gliding slowly along the automated track system, its surface pocked with rust and faint scratches. The yard relied on a sophisticated computerized scheduling system to move containers according to their shipping dates and destinations, a process so reliable that workers knew to avoid the designated pathways during automated runs to prevent accidents. "See that big red one, Kai?" Mason called, pointing to a gleaming crimson container suspended high above by a crane's claw. "That's headed to Japan. Can you imagine? Maybe one of your drawings is tucked inside, sailing across the ocean." Kai's eyes flickered with a spark of interest, though his expression remained guarded. Drawing was his refuge, his sketchbook filled with meticulous illustrations of the yard's cranes, trucks, and containers, each page a testament to his quiet obsession. Their small apartment's refrigerator was a gallery of his work, held up by mismatched magnets, every sketch signed with a careful, wobbly K in the corner. The morning unfolded with its usual rhythm. Mason clocked in at the office, a small prefab building with peeling paint, checked the oil levels on his forklift, and reviewed the day's assignments scrawled on a clipboard. Kai settled on his bench, his sketchbook open on his lap, a red crayon clutched in his hand as he captured the yard's movements with an artist's focus. The other workers, a mix of grizzled veterans and younger hires, had grown protective of Kai, slipping him juice boxes from their coolers or sharing cookies from their packed lunches. "Kids got good instincts," Tommy often remarked, leaning against a stack of crates during breaks. "He knows when something's off before we do." It was true. Kai had an almost uncanny ability to sense disruptions in the yard's rhythm, mechanical hiccups, impending storms, or even subtle shifts in the workers' moods. Just last week, he'd tugged urgently at Mason's sleeve and pointed to a crane seconds before its hydraulic line ruptured, spraying fluid across the lot. The crew had dubbed him their little warning system, a nickname that brought a shy smile to Kai's face. The Riverside shipping yard operated with clockwork precision. Containers rolled in by truck and rail, were sorted by a team of workers in neon vests, and moved through the automated system during the 2 to 4 p.m. lunch window, when the yard transformed into a choreographed dance of steel and gears. Kai had memorized the schedule, his sketchbook filled with detailed diagrams of the yard's layout, arrows marking container paths, cranes labeled with their model numbers, and trucks noted by their license plates. During lunch, Mason sat beside Kai on the bench, unwrapping a peanut butter sandwich. "Buddy," he said, brushing crumbs from his jeans, "sometimes I think you understand this place better than the rest of us." Kai looked up, his rare, genuine smile flashing briefly, warming Mason's heart. The boy reached into his backpack and pulled out his latest drawing. A bird's-eye view of the yard, complete with tiny figures of workers, cranes poised mid-lift, and a small sketch of himself and Mason standing hand-in-hand by the fence. "That's beautiful, Kai," Mason said, ruffling his son's dark hair. "Want to show Tommy?" Kai nodded eagerly, clutching the drawing as he scampered over to Tommy, who was checking inventory sheets near a stack of pallets. Tommy knelt to Kai's level, his weathered face softening. "Well, look at this," he said, studying the sketch. "You even got the crane angle spot on. You're gonna be an engineer someday, little man." Kai beamed, clutching the drawing to his chest as he ran back to Mason. As the afternoon shift approached, Kai grew visibly restless, abandoning his bench to pace near the fence, his eyes fixed on the container loading area where the automated system would soon activate. His fingers drummed a rapid rhythm against his leg, a sign of deep concentration Mason recognized well. "What's got you so focused today?" Mason asked, joining his son by the fence. Kai pointed to container 23C, the blue unit that had arrived that morning, its surface unremarkable save for a faint dent near one corner. Something about it felt off to Mason, though he couldn't place why. It looked like any other container in the yard. "Automated run starts in 15 minutes, Sarah," the shift supervisor, called out, her voice sharp over the radio clipped to her belt. A no-nonsense woman in her 40s, Sarah ran the yard with military precision. "Get Kai settled on the bench, Mason. You know the safety perimeter rules." Mason nodded, gently guiding Kai back to the bench, but the boy resisted, his gaze locked on 23C, his body tense as if drawn to it by an invisible force. At exactly 2 p.m., the automated system roared to life, its low hum vibrating through the ground as cranes lifted containers and tracks shuttled them along predetermined routes. Workers cleared the pathways, retreating to safe zones to watch the mechanical ballet unfold. Suddenly, Kai bolted from the bench, his small frame moving with startling speed. His eyes, wide with alarm, were fixed on something near 23C. "Kai, stop!" Mason shouted, dropping his clipboard as he sprinted after his son. Kai squeezed through a narrow gap in the fence, too small for an adult, and darted into the heart of the automated container area, weaving between moving machinery with an agility that seemed impossible for a 5-year-old. "Shut it down!" Mason yelled toward the control booth, his voice cracking with panic. Tommy scrambled to the manual override, but the system's 30-second safety delay meant Kai was already deep in the maze of moving steel, disappearing behind 23C. Mason scrambled over the fence, his shirt snagging on the jagged links, tearing as he dropped to the other side. His heart pounded as he rounded 23C, only to freeze at the sight before him. Kai crouched in a narrowing gap between two massive containers, their steel walls converging slowly on the automated track. The boy's small arms were wrapped around a large German shepherd, its brown and black fur matted with blood, one hind leg twisted at an unnatural angle beneath a heavy metal beam that had fallen across its body. The dog's breathing was labored, its amber eyes clouded with pain. But what stopped Mason cold wasn't just the dog's plight, it was Kai's voice. "It's okay," Kai whispered to the animal, his words soft but clear above the grinding machinery. "I'm here. I'm here." Mason stood paralyzed, his mind reeling. His son, who hadn't uttered a word in 8 months, was speaking, comforting a trapped, injured animal as the containers closed in, the gap now less than 4 feet wide. "Systems not responding," Tommy shouted from the control booth, his voice edged with desperation. "Overrides locked up." Sarah radioed for emergency backup, her voice sharp over the crackling line. Mason's eyes darted to the containers, their slow, relentless movement reducing the gap to 3 feet. Kai, crouched beside the dog, showed no sign of leaving, his small hands stroking its head with unwavering resolve. "No," Kai said clearly, his voice cutting through the chaos as Mason pleaded. "Kai, you have to move." The boy looked up, his dark eyes burning with a determination Mason had never seen before. "I won't leave him," Kai said, his words steady despite the shrinking space. Workers gathered at the perimeter, shouting suggestions, pry bars, emergency brakes, but the automated system's failsafes were unresponsive. The containers would converge in less than 12 minutes, crushing anything in their path. The German Shepherd, whom Kai later called Rex, lifted its head weakly, its gaze locked on the boy with an almost human understanding. Mason noticed a glint beneath the dog's matted fur, a high-tech collar, not the simple tag of a pet, but a heavy-duty nylon band embedded with electronic components and strange, etched symbols. "This isn't a regular dog," Mason murmured, his voice barely audible over the machinery's drone. With 8 minutes left, Mason made a decision. "I'm going in," he announced, tossing his hard hat aside. Tommy grabbed his arm. "You can't, Mason. If those containers shift, you're all trapped." But Mason shook him off. "My son's in there," he said, his voice unyielding. Squeezing through the fence's gap, his shoulders scraped raw, he reached Kai and Rex. The beam pinning the dog was a rusted steel support, far too heavy for one man to lift, and Rex's position made it impossible to pull him free without worsening his injuries. Kai pointed to the collar again, its metallic tags catching the sunlight. "His name's Rex," Kai said softly. "He told me." Mason blinked, unsure how to process his son's claim, but there was no time to question it. The gap was now 2 feet wide, the air thick with the screech of metal on metal. "I've got an idea," Mason said, his voice tight with focus. Positioning himself against one container, he braced his feet and gripped the beam. "Kai, when I lift, guide Rex through that opening." He pointed to a narrow gap between the beam and the container wall, just wide enough for the dog's body. Kai nodded, his small face set with purpose. Mason heaved, muscles straining, veins bulging in his forearms as the beam lifted a few precious inches. "Now, Kai." The boy whispered to Rex, his voice calm but commanding. "Come on, Rex. This way." Despite his injuries, the German Shepherd dragged himself forward, guided by Kai's gentle hands. His movements were agonizing, but he cleared the gap just as Mason's strength gave out. The beam crashed down, missing Rex by inches, kicking up a cloud of dust. Rex collapsed on the other side, free but exhausted. But Mason's relief was fleeting. The containers were still closing, now 18 inches apart, trapping the 3 of them in the narrowing corridor. "We need to move to the end," Mason urged, his voice hoarse. They crawled toward the far end, Kai supporting Rex's massive frame as best he could, the dog's injured leg dragging painfully. Mason noticed the containers weren't standard cargo units. Their walls were studded with vents, sensors, and what looked like built-in monitoring equipment. "These aren't normal containers," he muttered, a chill creeping up his spine. Kai pointed to a small access panel on one wall, labeled with unfamiliar codes and a keypad beneath a metal cover. "Dad, look," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos. With 7 minutes until convergence, Rex struggled to his feet and pawed at the keypad, triggering a series of electronic beeps. "He knows the code," Kai said matter-of-factly. The panel slid open, revealing a narrow tunnel leading into the container. Rex crawled through first, followed by Kai, with Mason squeezing his broader frame through just as the gap shrank to 6 inches. Inside, they emerged into a space that defied belief, a mobile laboratory, its walls lined with blinking computer terminals, glowing monitors, and racks of medical supplies. The air hummed with the low buzz of advanced electronics, and the floor vibrated faintly from the container's internal systems. This wasn't a shipping container, it was a high-tech command center. Rex, his injuries appearing less severe than moments ago, moved to a terminal and pressed a sensor with his paw. Screens flickered to life, displaying maps, satellite feeds, and a file labeled Project Sentinel, Asset 7, missing. A photograph of Rex appeared, alongside text detailing his status as an enhanced canine with cognitive and physical modifications. Kai knelt beside him, his small hands exploring the dog's fur. "He's not just a dog, Dad," Kai said softly. "He's special." Mason's eyes caught the glint of Rex's collar again, a quantum storage device embedded within, holding evidence of a corrupted enhancement program that turned animals into living weapons for assassination, espionage, and terrorism. Kai's connection to Rex revealed an extraordinary truth. The boy possessed a rare ability to communicate with enhanced subjects, a gift Rex had recognized while observing Kai in the yard for weeks. The trap had been a calculated test, orchestrated by Rex to awaken Kai's abilities and draw them into Dr. Elena Vasquez's mission. Vasquez, Rex's handler, had been killed 3 days earlier after uncovering the program's illegal operations. She'd programmed Rex to find someone like Kai to continue her work. As Mason processed this, shouts and footsteps echoed outside. Men in dark suits, armed with rifles, surrounded the container, their flashlights cutting through the dust. Rex moved to a control panel, his paws deftly activating a propulsion system. The container shuddered and lifted off, a fully operational aircraft, its reinforced hull deflecting bullets as it soared above the riverside yard. "Hold on," Mason told Kai, clutching his son as they ascended, the town shrinking below them. Rex navigated with precision, evading pursuit as they headed north toward a mountainous region. Kai, sitting cross-legged beside Rex, seemed unfazed, his hands resting on the dog's back. "Rex is talking to me," he explained. "In my head. It's easier now that we're connected." The communication device, a modified smartphone-like gadget, displayed text. "The neural link is temporary but enhances Kai's natural abilities." Mason's stomach churned. "He's still my son," he said firmly. "Yes," the device replied, "but with extraordinary capabilities." They landed at Safe House Alpha, a hidden facility carved into a mountainside, disguised by forest and equipped with solar panels and cloaked communication arrays. Inside, the complex was a labyrinth of advanced technology, living quarters, a medical bay, and training areas, all built by Dr. Vasquez as a contingency. Kai, guided by her memories, led them to an evidence vault. Placing his hand on a biometric scanner alongside Rex's paw, he unlocked it, the system recognizing Vasquez's cognitive signature in his mind. "Access granted." "Welcome, Dr. Vasquez," an automated voice intoned, sending a shiver through Mason. The vault revealed data drives, documents, and video recordings, proof of illegal contracts worth hundreds of millions, sold to private military firms, drug cartels, and foreign intelligence. Screens in the facility displayed feeds from other enhanced animals: a cat infiltrating a corporate office, a bird recording illegal deals, a dog named Shadow protecting a suburban family. Rex contacted Senator Williams, a congressional investigator probing military fraud, arranging to deliver the evidence. As they prepared to leave, headlights appeared on the mountain road, General Morrison's forces closing in. Rex launched the container skyward, evading pursuit as they flew toward Washington, D.C. At a private airfield outside the Capitol, Senator Williams, a sharp-eyed woman in her 60s, greeted them alongside her chief investigator, David Chen. Rex delivered a secure case of evidence, and Chen's team verified its authenticity, revealing a scandal of unprecedented scale: enhanced animals sold for assassination, espionage, and terrorism. News of the program's corruption broke simultaneously across global media, orchestrated by Kai, who used the enhanced animal network to flood outlets with evidence, preventing suppression. As the scandal erupted, Kai detected a distress signal from Shadow, trapped in a black site facility 30 miles away. Coordinating with the network, Kai directed birds to disable cameras, cats to sabotage alarms, and dogs to create diversions. Their container landed in the facility's courtyard, where Rex tore through reinforced doors, revealing dozens of caged, abused, enhanced animals, dogs, cats, even a hawk, their bodies scarred from experiments. Mason and Kai helped load them into Allied aircraft, completing the rescue in under 30 minutes as Morrison's forces arrived too late. 6 months later, in a Virginia backyard, Mason watched Kai and Rex play with a gravity-defying ball, their new life a blend of purpose and wonder. Kai attended a school for gifted children, honing his abilities, while Rex worked in a reformed program for enhanced animals, aiding in rescues and investigations. When a call came about Tommy, a 6-year-old autistic boy missing from home, Kai and Rex located him in an old barn within 20 minutes. Using their unique bond. As they drove home, Kai asked, "Would Mom be proud?" Mason met his son's eyes in the rearview mirror. "She'd be amazed, buddy, like I am every day." Rex's device flashed. Family, always family. Their Riverside days were a distant memory, replaced by a life of courage, connection, and a mission to protect the extraordinary. Like, share, subscribe, and drop a comment below with where you're watching from. If this story of grit, loyalty, and transformation struck a chord, share it with someone who believes in fighting for what's right.